Hello and welcome back to Hoi 4, Equestria War, the Ascendancy under Hiram Zaranid, and the Guide. And in today's video, well, in literally just like a minute. Well, one, I'm about to go to war, but two, I'm going to need to pause to see if I can make anything. Because I don't know if I can. And I need to be, and I currently can't check because yeah, I'm in the middle of a recipe, so it's literally gonna be like right at the beginning of the video when I'm gonna be like, okay, time to pause. Okay, there we go. Yeah, the Starfather speaks. Hear me and rejoice, so spirits of equinity. The Starfather has only spoken to us, his devoted followers. However, the technology exists to share his message with the rest of the world. It is about time that they hear his words. I wonder if they're hearing it on some sort of radio podcast. I wonder if one of those would ever get set up in a world like this. I don't know. That feels pretty unrealistic. Who would ever set up one of those? Yeah, what am I thinking? That would never happen. Never, ever. When would that possibly occur? Okay, let's continue murdering the Coltvins. Join us. Do it. Be one with us. A letter to Starfather. Oh, wait, shoot. These are, actually, let's see. I hope that the great work has been going well in Colthage. I've just stopped by a wonderful city of Vermilion. The Kieran here are quite lovely, and I would highly suggest you visit the land. I'm writing this letter to you because I have suspicion that a potion can be brewed from a certain type of ingredient. May I suggest try mixing together 3 fire-related ingredients? I believe that this might yield something useful for you. I wish you the best. Alright. Let me just check. Let's see. Do we have silk, acid, and some sort of coffee bean? Let me just... This is basically what I've been doing on my own. We have silk. We have acid. We don't have a coffee bean. Alright. Let's go to my list, which you aren't seeing my list since I have it set just to watch the game. But okay, heart, feather, ghost. Heart, feather, ghost. Alright, heart, feather, and ghost can be put together. And that's basically what I've been doing. Potion of True Fire. Consuming a bottle of this concoction transforms the user to the likes of a Neric, obtaining powers of one. The liquid may also be used to fuel for flamethrowers, and throwing a container of it causes combustion that may be used as improvised grenades in battle. Be warned, if the user is not a Kieran, an agonizing and painful death awaits them once his effects wears down. Okay. Potion of True Fire. Increased soft attack and breakthrough, but less HP, judging by the fact that we die after. From the personal journal of Hiram Zaranid. Brilliant. Simply brilliant. I've managed to replicate the Kieran's ability to transform into their Neric state. Such a power is dangerous, lethal even, but enticing all the same. Curiously, though, when I brewed the mixture, I briefly saw an apparition of what appeared to be a very young dragon. In the smoky flames, it looked almost afraid. I never did ask my guide how she obtained the heart of one, though I suppose it doesn't really matter. Cosmic mistakes are not my concern. One final note, the essence of the ghost pepper is surprisingly tasty. I'll need to add it to some of my personal recipes. One step closer to transcendence. Yep. Okay. The floodplain. The island of Horsemews was unusual, to say the least. It was known for having such low elevation that it had experienced severe flooding throughout history, though such flooding was rare enough that one could reasonably walk on the island without fear of getting one's hooves wet. This was not one of those times. As the two equines walked through the waterlogged plains, plops sounding with every step. The student decided to break their silence once more. So, what's happening once we're done with your shopping list? We'll return home. The guide kept her eyes low to the flooded ground, looking for signs of the fabled Atavillian coffee bean that the Huron had asked her to find. Home for you, maybe. They'll just kill me like they do every pony else who doesn't share their beliefs. The guide opted to ignore her remark rather than start another argument about it. She could deal with her later. What mattered now was finding the next ingredient. The two continued to search fruitlessly for some time. Eventually the guide neck ached from being bent down so much that she paused to move it around to relieve the stress. It was then that she noticed that there was a small patch of land off to their left in the distance that wasn't flooded. Upon it were a few plants, though she couldn't tell what they were from here. She changed horse to take a closer look, then found none other than the rare beanstalk she had been searching for. After collecting several coffee beans and storing them safely in her pouch, the guide turned to instruct the student on where they needed to go next. Surprisingly, the student didn't make any imperative comments. She simply nodded while sullenly looking at the coming sunset. Almost done. Obtained ingredient, coffee bean. Or the super project. Not yet. Man, we are just gonna do it all on this one thing. Alright. We did it. Coltva is down. Our expansion path begins. Also, speaking of an expansion path, we have, apparently we have a new thing we can do here, but what I was talking about is cleansing of Griffonia. The day of the Avians' reckoning is near. When we land on those wretched shores and push the beasts of Zalmar to the north, we fulfill our promise, the eradication of all avian kind. We plan to split the continent into multiple governing bodies to ease the burden of administration, and to make the cleansing process much more effective. Let's see, Quagatai. Yeah, I'd say Quagatai makes sense as our next target. Let's go ahead and get the troops ready for that. Good. Alright. Snooping. The guide's eyes shot open, but she did not lift her head just yet. She had heard a faint noise in their campsite, a rustling of sorts. She couldn't see what it was from where her head was pointed, but it was something hostile. Then it would be unwise to alert it. She reached for a knife with care not to make any sudden movements, just as she grasped it. She heard the noise once more, the rustling of pages. The guide bolted upright. She saw her pouch open. Not too far away was the student, who seemed to panic at the guide's sudden movement. She had dropped a small book onto the ground in her attempt to hide it, a purple book with the Ascendancy's logo emblazoned on it, the guide's journal. Immediately, the guide tackled the student to the ground, blade pressed against her throat. "What do you think you're doing, you insolent wretch?" Tears formed in the student's eyes as she struggled to free herself. You have a picture of a griffin and a pony in here." Fury seemed to overcome the guide. She dug her blade in slightly, enough to draw a small amount of blood. Her voice was filled with venom. I suggest you choose your next words very carefully. Did you see anything in my journal?" The student whimpered and closed her eyes. Answer me!" demanded the guide. I saw only a zebra struggling with her faith." The guide's head pounded. Her mind and body were screaming at her to slaughter this heretic here and now, yet the guidance still held her back. as if the young mare in front of her was the single most important thing that was ever drawn to her. It didn't make any sense. Why would the guidance continue to make her suffer the presence of this non-believer? With a roar, "Argh!" The guide picked up the student and threw her at nowhere in particular. The student yelped as she tumbled across the ground, but did not seem to be injured by the throw. Without bothering to check on the student, the guide started putting her things away. "Breathe another word of this, and it will be your last." And thus their journey continued. Just continuing our journey. The redemption of Colthaginian. Colthaginian was stolen from Colthage years ago by the wicked Khan Zagu, a warmonger who respects nothing but his own power. This crime against equality cannot be unpunished, for there are several equines in Colthaginian who would surely wish to hear the teaching of the Starfather. Hello, my teacher. Have you ever had to suffer the presence of a non-believer for an extended period of time? Time and time again, I have tried to help a rebellious equine with silver accept the role in the ascendancy, and yet she spurns your teachings at every opportunity. I'm beginning to think that my idea to redeem her was a foolish venture. Fortunately, I do have some good news. I have suspicion that another potion can be concocted from 2 products of a large creature combined with something edible. I hope this yields results for you, my teacher. It might be worth writing this down. We've only got 2 things left, and I think... Are we, about to be done? With collecting, I believe so. The Kalub tree. Upon the mountains of the Camarita trekked the guide and the student in search of a rare tree said to be resistant to all forms of magic. Saddle Arabia was quite nice this time of year, and though recent conflicts had caused much death and destruction around the country, the locals around Camarita have endeavored to retain some semblance of normalcy. The student was quite flustered by the physique of the Saddle Arabian horse, as they were slightly larger and more toned than even the biggest earth ponies. The guide had to drag her away whenever one tried to strike up conversation with the young Pegasus. The mountains themselves were somewhat rough to traverse, but thankfully the trees they were searching for were easy to find in the end. The guide and the student trotted up to one, admiring the grand fruits they produced above. Upon trying to fly up and pick one, the student found that her wings were having trouble lifting her off the ground. Eventually, the trees seemed to negate magic of those around them, in addition to being magic resistant as well. At the guide's insistence, the student carefully climbed the tree to reach the fruits containing the coveted seeds. Despite being a Pegasus, the student suddenly found herself overcome with fear of heights. She tightly hugged the branch as she inched towards the fruit. Upon reaching one, she carefully tugged at it until it detached from the branch. The guide easily caught the fruit, then opened it up with her knife to inspect it. Upon confirming that the desired seeds were within it, she told the student to descend from the tree. Luckily for both of them, the student managed to do so without falling or potentially injuring herself. The student dusted herself off, then 2 of them began the long journey out of Saddle Arabia. Soon it will all be over. Obtains ingredient seed of Kalub tree to be used in alchemical super projects. Are we clicking on another thing, or nope? We're still just staying there on the map. Jeez. We're apparently just decide apparently it's time to just be we don't need to click on anymore. We're good now. Apparently. Oh. Sure. All good things. I don't like the sound of that. After collecting the final ingredients, the guide and the student decided to take a boat back to Colthage rather than walk. The journey at sea was quiet for the most part, though towards the end it had begun to rain. As the 2 took shelter in the small cabin, the student decided to open her mouth once more. What were you like before all this? Lost, without purpose, said the guide almost automatically. The teacher granted me what I needed most. The student looked away. Whether it was the rain that had wet her face or the tears that glistened in the candlelight, the guide couldn't tell. There wasn't any joy in life before? None at all? Instead of answering, the guide changed the topic. When we get back to Colthage, you will be executed if you do not abandon your vain beliefs. I know. The two then sat quietly with only the pitter-patter of rain to keep them company. Eventually, the student took a deep breath and spoke again. If I'm going to die, then I'd like to know your name. I am the guide. I always have been, and I always will be, the guide said firmly. She saw tiredness, or was it disappointment, on the student's face. It didn't matter. Though student is just a moniker you have adopted out of spite, I can find your name in the records once we return. It was then that she saw anger begin to boil within the student. Why would you, though? You don't care about me. You don't care about anyone. You sacrificed your friends for a false promise from a fake religion led by a lying maniac. Elishad and Zethro died for nothing. Immediately, the guide drew her knife and pointed at the student. You'll suffer for that. You just hurt people because you think you're better than them. I'm not scared of you anymore, because I know that you'll never change. Not ever. The guide felt her own righteous fury begin to swell. Don't do it! Don't do it! Don't do it, please! I agree, don't do it. I beg of you. Please. I don't want you to. Don't do it. Please. Don't. I don't want you to. I've declared you shouldn't. As the player character, I've declared don't do it. Don't do it. All good things, and here's the must come to an end. After the briefest hesitation. Okay, and we're back. I know you don't know why I'm saying and we're back, but we are back because, I have the rest of this video recorded, but there's no audio because my mic unplugged itself randomly at this point in the recording. So, I'm going to be reading the rest of the events post. Just to say, I loved these events, and I'm really annoyed that you're not going to get to hear the original for me saying. After the briefest hesitation, the guide threw herself at the student and gouged one of her eyes out with the knife. And screamed and thrashed against. And that's where it cuts out, as you can see. You heard me talking there, but now I'm no longer talking on the pre. That's where it cuts out for me. So now, the student screamed and thrashed against the stronger zebra, trying desperately to push her away long enough to flee. She wasn't near capable enough. She was merely a college student after all. The guide removed the bloodied knife from her eye socket and impaled her other eye, permanently blinding her. Cries and sobs melded together in horrific cacophony. Shock began to set in as blood overran the tear stains on her face. She went limp, though the guide could still feel her heartbeat. Feeling the surge of her coming kill flow through her, the guide took a moment to gloat. I've been looking forward to this so much, heretic. Every day you have tested my patience, belittled the faith, and The guide felt a pressure build within her, a sudden inexplicable feeling of the guidance somehow. Now more than ever, it told her to spare this mare, the mare who spat in her face of everything she believed in. Her hoofs began to shake. She screamed in frustration, Why? Why is she so important? The only answer she got was the faint whimpering from the student. The guide's head hurt. She couldn't take this, couldn't stand it. She would not live another minute in the presence of this heretic. Important or not, she yanked one of the student's wings open and viciously severed it with her knife, causing it a series of pain to come from the young mare. The guide then grabbed her other wing, dragged her out of the cabin, then threw her overboard. She turned around and went back inside, not bothering to see if she drowned. Finally, she was alone. The guide took several deep breaths, trying to calm herself. She was free of judgment, wait, there was something missing. Her breath quickened. What was it? Her ingredients were all here, but her eyes widened. The guidance. She couldn't feel it anymore. The guidance was gone. And from such an end comes a new beginning. And waste not time creating the concoctions. And we have only ingredients at this point. Approach the legionaries of the night. The Equines of Chiroptera are a particular bunch. They hold and cherish the spirit of equinity unknowingly, yet they have not said a single word to us since our rise to power. Of our potential hours, a few are far between. Thus the Starfathers deemed it necessary to offer them an alliance to destroy the avians of Hippogriphia. And as you can see, we declare war on Quagatai. A letter to the Starfather. Teacher, I believe that you'll be able to make something from the product of a plant, combined with the body of a third part and a third ingredient from Zebraca. I'm going to be unregional for a little while. I apologize for not telling you this directly, but due to recent experiments, I'm going to need some alone time. My temper has gotten the better of me, and I feel that I may have made a terrible mistake. Please forgive me. I don't know if I can forgive myself, the guide. P.S. I will return for your big moment. It might be worth writing this down. We get the day of the avians' reckoning is near, and when we land on these wretched shores and push the beast of Zalmar to the north, we will fulfill our promise, the eradication of all even kind. We have planned to split the continent into multiple governing bodies to ease the burden of administration and to make the cleansing process that more efficient. The Pearl Fjords of Quachtran. Off the coast of Quachtran lies an abundance of clams, oysters, and countless other bivalves. As of the visitors are shallow, warm, and rich in nutrients necessary to support a diverse economy. Since time immemorial, the zebras who live along the coast have harvested these bivalves, both for their meat and the precious pearls they produce, forming a strong, robust local economy. But splitting this economy in two ways is wasteful. Then instead, we could be focusing on one or the other, and maximizing it for the benefit of the ascendancy. The issue is fairly even split and rather straightforward, but in this perpetual jousting between the two groups, they have each sided with one half of the local economy over the other. Zikatites want to cease the collection of oyster pearls and instead focus on harvesting bivalve meat to supplement our food resources. Seeing pearls is nothing but a frivolous luxury that the ascendancy can do without. Zidanites argue instead for the opposite in expanding the oyster fields and implementing sustainable harvesting techniques to collect pearls without harming the oysters, allowing the industry to boom and grow very profitable indeed. It is up to us, therefore, to decide whether we value the oysters more for their meat or for their pearls in deciding what to do next. We could do food or they're a little more, and pearls are a luxury that will help boost our economy and make citizens grateful. And because I'm doing a Zidanites run, of course I went with their side. Now I successfully make the last ingredient. Consuming a bottle of this concoction the second to last ingredient, causes the user to be more resilient towards pain stimuli, as well as drastically increasing their stamina, allowing them to fight for longer without rest. This potion is highly addictive. Once the potion's effects dissipate, the user may find themselves struggling to do basic motor actions for several days, which incentivizes the user to consume more of this potion. And that gives us Brewing Successful, Essence of Endurance, from the Personal Journal of Hiram Ziranid. I am most impressed with this potion. I have created perhaps the most powerful painkiller and stamina booster in the world. Like many stimulants, it likely has side effects, but I am sure that this one won't be too problematic if handled carefully. It might be useful for the Equines of Silver, and it gives us maximum organization and lowers our recovery rate. This person gets wounded. Chiroptera accepts. Today, several officers from Chiroptera were permitted entry into Colthage to discuss the exact terms of our proposed alliance. As they disembarked from their ship, one couldn't help but notice how on edge they were, as though they were afraid that a single misstep might spell their deaths. Furthermore, their uniforms stood out like a sore hoof against the systematic robes of the Equines of Gold who greeted them. Fortunately for all parties involved, the negotiations were quick and easy. The Chiropterans have agreed to the majority of our terms, with the only significant alteration being the matter of the city of Winggarden. They wish to experiment with it, should our shared conquest be successful. With the agreement settled, plans were drawn up to establish official diplomatic channels between Chiroptera and the Ascendancy. One Equine of Gold remarked that this reminded her of an old saying, "Friendship is the death of the avian." Splendid. And we make an alliance together. And yeah, this is where we're at the end of this episode. Now that I've just read through the events that I got unread. Unread? Sure, unread. But I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always, peace.